Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir. How you doing, Chief?
Oh, all is well, brother. All is well. Yes, sir. We want to thank you for joining with us, brother. Brother Damon will be with us in just a moment.
Yes, sir. All praises be to Allah, Chief. I'm
You know,
humbled to be on.
yeah, yes, sir. Well, we definitely appreciate you, brother, because about toward the end of Ramadan, brother Damon and I started just having discussions about our experience being married, some of the ups, and mostly about the downs, lessons that we can learn from.
Okay.
Hopefully, as time moves on, we learn from our lessons because we still have hope that we're going to get it right. This next time, we want it to be our last time, God willing.
God willing. Yes, sir.
Yes, and
sir.
Brother Damon because he's just a brother who came into the ranks in the city of San Diego, he's just a person who just knows how to connect with people.
Okay.
And he started, hey, look, we need to, open this conversation up to our brothers in the nation and see what it is they have to say, particularly brothers that he looks up to. So when he told me about you, I was like, hey, look here, it only makes sense.
And all praises be to Allah, man.
Brother, one of the first times I got to I heard about you. It was.
Hope it wasn't all bad, brother. I hope it wasn't all bad.
It wasn't. It was the minister did a funeral, I believe,
yes,
for your father.
Yes, sir.
And the name Hannibal just stands out to me. I was like, oh, Hannibal. I said, that's an awesome name because I know a little bit about the man Hannibal.
Yes, sir.
And so I was like, okay, so this brother comes from a believing family.
Yes.
This is the brother's father, the funeral I saw.
Yes, sir.
And the relationship that I could tell that the minister had with him and his family, which is your family.
Yes.
I was like, okay, well, this must be someone that is definitely worth our time. Listen, the believers in general are just worthy of that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. But to hear God's man speak those kind words about your family, I was like, yeah, I'm looking forward.
I'm listening. I'm gonna grab my mic. I didn't realize I didn't have it connected. Keep talking.
Yes, that's fine.
I can hear you.
And so that was when I found out it was you. I was like, hey,
man, brother, I'm truly humbled to be on. Let me see, did it connect? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. It sounds deeper too.
You to say it again?
Yeah, the voice sounds deeper, clear.
All praise be to Allah. I'm humbled to even be able to speak to this. My goal, I know if I remember, we're talking about courtship.
Yes.
So my goal really is to speak on just, on our side, our accountability. Yes, if anything, it's like even when we talk about the lows, what we could have done differently, what I could do better, what we could do better.
Yes, sir.
Even the expectations that we have between the brothers and the sister side, yes, sir. The men's class to the women's class. We're not being taught what they're being taught. They're not being taught what we're being taught. Right. They're being taught on what the standard is of a FOI, which is good. But we're not maintaining that standard. So that also leads into a lot of downfalls in these marriages. Now, I'm not saying it's unrealistic because we're not there yet, but they're being taught on what it's supposed to be. So that should be our standard of trying to get to, and them having patience with us as we strive to meet that standard. So yes, it's a process, man.
Well, brother, I think that's a beautiful place to start, because I know for me, my failure in my marriage was I was very impatient, and the way I should have handled situations with her, I should have known. I should have been more proactive.
Yes.
And so let's go ahead and start there, and then as you go on, we just want to give you this time to go ahead and just flow with it for a little while, and then we'll we can ask some questions.
Yes, sir. Yeah, all praise be to. If I may, I always want to properly give this a proper salutation. So in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah. I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted Christ, living Messiah. And I further bear witness that the honorable minister Louis Farrakhan is not just the extension of these two, but he's also now exalted as the Jesus Messiah in our midst. And I greet my beloved brother with the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
You know, when we look at patience, or even the aspect of marriage, I'm gonna pose a question to you, and then we can really get into this.
Yes.
When you and your previous wife, when y'all got married, how old were you?
I was 25.
Huh. Me too. How many relationships had you been in beforehand?
Man, maybe say 3.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
And in those relationships, which relationship was, I don't need the person, but how long was your longest relationship before your marriage?
My longest? Oh man, probably about a year.
So now, I'm a math guy. And I like principles. So if we look at it just strictly from that angle,
yes,
you're married at 25. Your longest relationship before your marriage is only 1 year.
Yes.
So if we were to subtract that, that means you now come to 24. However long those other relationships were, we'll just take hypothetically another 2 years off.
Right.
So that means for 22 years of your life, you only focused on you.
Right.
And then you add a marriage into it. And I think a lot of times we forget, I have 22 years of me. She has 20 something years of her. And now we're bringing in a marriage with the way I was brought up, the way you were brought up, the way we think things are supposed to go, even to an argument of how you clean a kitchen.
Wow.
How you cook food, how you wash clothes. There's going to be differences there from the way our upbringing are. And now we're trying to balance my 20 something years, your 20 something years to our 1 year of marriage.
Yes.
To our 2 years of balance. That scale isn't balanced. So you're trying to create balance by not bringing up small issues, but also not holding resentment to those small issues and allowing them to become bigger issues. Wow. So it's a process. And, you know, and for me, I've made plenty of mistakes within my marriage, you know, striving to be right. And like through the grace of Allah, if it be the will of Allah, this December will make 13 years for us.
Oh, praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. Now, at the 10 year mark, I took some time and I started processing backwards decisions I made. And, you know, my focus was I don't want to put blame on her and whatever she didn't do. Right. I wanted to focus on what was the things I did wrong. And as I rolled back those 10 years, I was seeing things. And as I was seeing these different things, I was also seeing, all right, Hannibal, before you beat yourself up on them, go back to being 25. At the age of 25, based off the knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and I'm gonna add another word in there, comprehension that you had at that point in time, was that the best decision? And when I did that, I had to realize you didn't make a bad decision.
Yeah.
Based off what you knew. Doesn't mean it was the right decision.
Right.
You just didn't make a bad decision. Because now, almost 13 years later, I'm looking and saying, I should have did this. I should have did that. I should have came this way instead of, you know, we could talk football. Instead of going hit them with a dive or a draw, I should have came with a sweep. Wow. I should have worked myself around that to minimize the casualties in the process. Yeah. And when you go back and you look at that, now you start seeing, I can see why 10 years down, 10 years later, why there's certain issues in our marriage that it's like, I created that. Yes, I created that monster. So, yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Damon.
Well, salam, Brother Hannibal and Brother Balta. Good to see you, brothers.
Likewise.
Apologize for my tardiness.
So this y'all show. I'm humble to be on.
Yo, brother, is, as you were saying what you're saying, because I know for me and for Brother Damon and me, and I just imagine from brothers I've talked to who are on their second marriages, there's a lot of, sometimes we feel guilty, we feel regret because we hold ourselves to such a high standard and we didn't get it right. Yes. And so I know, as you brought that analogy of, really, I did not have, how would I know? How really would I know? And that was the reason Brother Damon and I did this, is because there's just so many viewpoints that you just brought up and how you explained that.
Wow. That
really shows how we really have to be light with how we look at a thing, because it can really blow an argument up, a situation up. And your experience as, how long have you been assistant student and a student in the ministry?
Well, I've been a student in ministry for years, in and out. I started off, I got registered in Houston, and I was in a ministry class in Houston. Once I came to Phoenix, I, through the grace of Allah, was student protocol for a couple years, and I've been the student assistant minister here in Phoenix for the last 7 years.
Yes, sir.
It's over 7 years now. So,
and
yes.
So as a student assistant minister, you have an opportunity to see brothers enter, sisters enter into courtship. And in your experience, what would you say is something that you would say is the best thing? Because we know the courtship process, the basics of it, but talk about what you see is the best way for brothers to look at themselves and what they're bringing to the relationship and how they view themselves going into courtship.
Great question. Very, very good question. It's going to be, in my humble opinion, it's going to be a little difficult to answer, only based off of our influences. And that holds so much weight on how we move. Growing up, it was your parents, it was your friends, it was your family. At this point in time, that's not really your major influence anymore. Social media is. So now you have what's a social media standard of what a man is. Look, is he 6 feet or taller? Is he making 6 figures? So now it's like, okay, now you got to question, what is your expectations of me? So you have to figure out, and even in that conversation, you start finding out who's your influence. What's your relationship like with your mother? What's your relationship like with your father? What's your relationship like with your brothers? Because once you get to meet these individuals, these people, if you look at it like Tetris or a puzzle, they're the pieces that help mold this individual that, if it be the grace of Allah, you're seeking a future with. So you want to figure out what these relationships are. And one of the things, I've been humbled to be able to counsel some young couples through the years. And what I will always express to them, you have those questions, but sometimes the questions can come off kind of robotic or even mundane or just here. But let's take those same questions and now let's start expanding them out more. So like it was a weird one, but I threw one out. And I said, because I want to spark some real conversations, because I like critical thinking. Yeah. I like critical thinking and I love self-discovery. Being in management and leadership, one of the biggest things you could do is try to get your team to have self-discovery. Once you figure it out on your own within certain guidance, I ain't got to teach you again because you know it. Yeah. So I hit him with this when I said, ask sis, if the minister had to go on the run, you two were married, and you get a call, brother, I need somewhere to stay. I got to be off the grid. Can I stay? Now, this is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Right. Can I stay with you? Have that conversation, see how that goes. Wow. Just in that conversation, you're trying to figure out, what are you cooking? Yes. What can he eat? What can he not eat? How do you pick him up without people noticing him? Where do you place him at in your home? Just in case somebody comes to visit. How do you ensure the team is aware of his circumstances and you're able to come? It's a lot that goes. See, now we're talking some high level thinking conversation, and we ain't even getting into no baby planes yet. We're just trying to figure out, how do we think? And in that conversation, now you're looking at, all right, what is your expectations of me? Right. And what is my expectations of you? Because now who's cooking? Now, yeah. Quinn, now you want me to cook for the minister? You have my food? No, brother, you not cooking. Are we ordering in food? Are we calling a believer we normally would eat from? There's certain believers who are on the team and who travel on behalf of the minister that don't eat from the mosque based off instructions from the minister. So when you look at that, now it's like you're having a real conversation, and it doesn't just come off. Have you ever been in a relationship before? How long were you married? How long? like we're not. It's like if I could say it like this. When I would interview at work, one of my favorite things was interviewing and being interviewed. Yeah. When I would interview, you always had those list of questions, and when you would look at it, you'd be like, this seems like an interview question. So I would find ways to reword the questions where it's like a regular conversation and we're laughing, but in my head I'm saying, yeah, I ain't hiring you. And you'll leave the interview like, man, I did great. I'm like, you're trash. I'm not hiring you. But it allowed me to really learn more about you than just based off you giving me a robotic answer. Right. That scripted answer. Tell me about a time you was in a circumstance and you had to work through it. Like everybody we already prepped that answer. Right. But if I can find a way to throw a different type of question and still get you to talk about being in a situation, tell me about a time you and your boy was out having a good time and he just did something stupid. Oh man, we was out there drinking. Oh man, how many drinks did you have? Yeah. See, setup question. That's a setup, man. And they say, yeah, man, I was pissing drunk. And it was like, what day was that on? Oh, it was on a Thursday. Yeah. Oh, but you had to come to work on Friday. You was pissy drunk Thursday. Right. Yeah, I'm good. Permits was low the next day. I don't want to hire you. So, you learn to ask questions like that. Now, as a man, when I'm talking to brothers, I just remind them, be patient. Learn her outlets, learn what makes her happy, learn the little details about her, find what's her comfort space, what's yours, what is your outlet, what is her outlet, because at some point in time you need your own outlet. Wow. Yeah. Figuring those things out. Also, I'll we can come around to this part later, but I always tell I tell myself if there was one regret or one thing I would have did differently in my marriage, I would have moved to where my wife was at instead of my wife moving to where I was at. Yeah. Because when you go to the book Real Love, Dr. Afa talks about how it's not in the nature for a woman to really have to change like that, to have to move. It creates anxiety and trauma for her moving. You talk about just moving from house to house. Yeah, so we're talking about moving, not just house to house, you're talking about moving from state to state now and giving up what is your comfort. So if there was one thing for me, I would have went to where she was at, spent time there, developed what I needed to do there, allowed her to strengthen up and become more confident in the aspect of marriage, knowing her support system is there. And then later on, moving wherever we're going to move to. Because one of the biggest things you run into, and if you all have any children, one of the biggest things you run into is if she moved to where you were at and she don't already have her friends established, her support system established, she's going to be calling you when anytime she's going through something with the child. And as the man, you're expecting her to maintain that because you're out working, but she doesn't have the support. So when you get home, what is she doing? She's handing the child off to you. And you're trying to figure out like, yeah, I just got to finish doing 8 to 12 hours. I'm not trying to come home to, I don't want to say babysitting because you're not babysitting your children, but to that fatherly role right now. But she's been motherly role for the last 8 plus 10 hours. So she needs a break. Where if you had that support system, she could have went and spent time with her sister, her mother, her aunt, her grandmother, her best friend. And that allowed her to at least not feel like it was such a burden. So when you came home, it's a little bit easier to digest. So that's one thing. That's one major principle I learned. And I tell everybody that. And everybody who did the opposite, we have a conversation again. And they tell me how much of a difference is made when they shift it back and wind up moving to where she
Yes, sir. You know, do you see? Because I can imagine just like taking a flower out of its pot and trying to put it somewhere else.
Come on, talk about transplant.
Yeah, that's deep. I never thought about that.
And I didn't either. I didn't either. Like my wife's from California. I got registered in Houston. I'm in Houston at the time.
Yeah.
We settled on Phoenix because my family was in Phoenix and it was closer to California. I didn't want to live in California. Right. She didn't want to live in Texas. So it was like, well, let's come to Phoenix then. I mean, and my agreement was you can go home anytime you want. Wow. You can visit your family. It's a 45-minute to an hour and 15-minute flight. Just give me enough day notice so it doesn't come off like, hey, I'm leaving today. Hold on, what? No, man. Right. Just let me at least know a couple of days in advance when you're planning it. So whatever I got to do to adjust, we can adjust. You go get, sometimes it's like, am I rolling or you? No, I'm going by myself. Are the children going or children staying? No, they staying. Right. Going to yourself. I'll see when you get back.
Yes, sir.
When you hit me up to like, what's today? Thursday. I'm going out of town. I'm like, oh, no, ma'am. Yeah, that's too short notice. Like, let's be respectful to each other's time and let's discuss it. Because I might have had something coming up this weekend, right. And I was planning on doing this based off that. Like, let's just work it out.
Yes, sir. Do you
communication
in your years as a student in the ministry, and watching the brothers and sisters, do you sometimes naturally want to match make where you can say, wow, this brother would be good for this? Have you ever seen that? Have you ever been like, I think this person is good for this person. I wonder how they would go. Like, do you sometimes think that sometimes or see things that way?
Trying to set me up, brother.
Well, the reason this is the reason I'm asking is because I know that Brother Student, I think it was Brother Student Minister Lee, he had mentioned, I think, a culture of marriage. And I can only imagine, because I listen to some people who are dating coaches online, and you know how people try to bring people together. And yes. You see something in a brother like, wow, this brother, because Brother Keith, his brother out in San Antonio, he looked at me one day and he said, I know someone who would be real, real good for you just based on your personality. With the counseling that you've done and the experience you've had in the ministry, does that sense in your mind just kind of be like, yeah, I see this is not going to go, or yes, this is going to work,
Absolutely. I was talking to somebody earlier today. I'm going to tie it all together. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I said, if you looked at my library, my books are full of leadership, business, warfare, strategy, and spiritual books. I don't have no novels.
Right.
And someone I love putting the schedule together at work. I love strategies. So that being itself, you see things, you'll be like, I feel like that would be, or even like somebody I know in a whole nother state, I'd be like, but do I act on it? In most cases, no, because I don't want to be caught up in the middle of no stuff. But I will say this: one of my little brothers, they've been married 7 years now. I believe 7 years now. They're currently out of the country, enjoying themselves. I'm so happy. And he came to Phoenix to visit, and we're talking. My wife, that's her thing. Well, brother, when you gonna get married, brother? What's going on, brother? What's your ideas? Because she be trying to connect them. And I'm like, oh, chill out. But I'm always sizing up at the same time. So in the conversation, he mentions a sister, and he doesn't even mention her for courtship. They're just doing work together. But I'm peeping the energy, the body language, what he's saying about her. And as he finished, my wife looked at each other. And I was like, brother, I think that might be your wife right there.
Wow.
Because they meshed and they just love to soldier. They love to work. They both of them single. They don't have any children. They're young, and he just off them working. He's like, bro, we just connect so well in the work. And I'm like, well, isn't that what you need as a helpmate? I mean, when sometimes we think the opposite, opposites attract. No, the opposite is the male and female. That's the opposite. You're supposed to be equally yoked. So if you both are passionate about the same things, that means you're not going to be competing with each other, or, she's upset because you're doing this over here and you're upset because she's doing that over there. You complement each other. And next thing I know, a few months later, he hit me up and was like, yo, you going to be at Savior's Day? He's like, yeah, I might need you to take some pictures.
Yes.
What's going on? Yeah, bro, I'm about to pop the question.
Yeah.
Hold on, y'all was in courtship and you didn't tell me, so, but through the grace of Allah, he wound up proposing to her at Savior's Day, and then I was blessed to be the photographer at their wedding. So,
oh yes. Well, brother, speaking of that, I know recently there was a really big, beautiful event in Chicago dealing with modest dress.
Yes.
And it made me think about a mistake I made in my marriage. We were getting ready to go to the mosque one day, and when we were early in our marriage, and I hadn't yet put money to just go get her a whole bunch of clothes. I just hadn't thought of doing that.
Yes.
So when she got ready to go to the mosque, she just got dressed to just go out. And I was like, well, she didn't have the covering on, and I told her to stay home. And her father got so pissed off at me.
Me too.
He got so pissed off at me. He said, you're supposed to go take and buy some clothes, fool.
Yes.
I said, damn, that changed me.
Yes.
I felt so bad.
Yes.
Man. So I know because you're a photographer, and that event was so beautiful because it just shows the future of how much our sisters are impacting the modest scene and the fashionable scene.
Yes.
How important would you say it is for brothers to understand, how the sister dresses as opposed to what she's accustomed to? Like, what should we know? What should we be ready to do to make sure that we don't put too much on her or don't expect too less?
That's a great question. One, there's a few things to that question. One, we're taught to put the clean glass next to the dirty glass. You don't have to condemn. You just be the example. And this goes back to how we start the conversations dealing with balance. If you heard the minister recently at the national training, he made mention, I'm paraphrasing, but he made mention, you can come as you are. But he talked about you can't stay that way. So even with her coming to the mosque, she may not be in proper attire yet. You can come as you are. But the more she will come around and see that beautiful white garment, that beautiful white crown from head to toe, just by nature, she's going to want to be a part of that. She's going to have questions. She's going to be inquiring about it. And all we do is be support. You don't sit there and force it. Because let's think about us as men. If she was forcing you to do something, how would you respond? You will rebel against it.
Right.
But one of the most skillful thing women do is they know how to plant a seed and make it seem as if it was your idea. That's a skill we have to learn from them. How do I plant a seed and make it seem as if it was her idea? So it's just an encouragement piece. And it's very important. Not that we know exactly the inches and how her attire is supposed to be. That's not our place. That is for the sisters to do. Our place is just to make sure we create the environment. See, oh man, you about to give me teaching, brother. Our responsibility is to create the environment so that she can tap into her creative expression.
Yes.
Create the environment so she doesn't have to step out of her feminine expression, and making sure she has the right tools there to be able to do it. So if a tool is the MGT, You find the right MGT there to help. That's not trying to come in and cause havoc in your marriage.
Right.
But the one that sees, I see what you're trying to do, brother. I got you. Leave her to me.
Yeah,
See, you want that one. You want why he married that one over? No. You want the one that sees you. I see what you're doing, brother. And then what's she gonna do? She gonna give you some hints. Just make sure you got this in place for her. I was talking to her. She said she wears size 9s.
Yeah.
What you do? You go get those size 9s white pumps for her. You know, she's a medium, brother. This is what I need you to do. So we about to get the sister some garments. Can you send me 250? She wears size medium. I'm gonna go ahead and order it for her. See, you don't need to know that you was helping with that. Allow her to build her relationship, and you just be thankful to the sisters for helping to support. But that's based off establishing a relationship. Sometimes we put things in between that with titles and stuff. The best title is brother and sister.
That's right.
You're brother and sister. That means you're what? That falls under the umbrella as family. So if you're family, I should be able to talk to my family. Your family, look, this is what I got going on. Can you help me? So as long as we're learning the value of it, man, what the sisters, the minister expressed at, I'm trying to remember which message it was. It was a women's conference. It was a few years ago. And the minister said, the home is not the woman's place. I'm paraphrasing, not her place, but it's her base. He said her place is wherever God takes her gifts and talents. Well, if he's saying that that's not, the home isn't her place, but it's her base, what is our responsibility? To create the proper base for her so that she has a strong foundation to be able to go out and do what she needs to do. So that is supporting it.
Right.
You know, and I'm gonna go back to work. If you ever worked at a company and you need a pen, they don't have pens. They don't got paper. They ain't got ink for the printer. The environment is not set up properly with the right foundation for you to be successful at your job. If you're not getting trained, how are you going to do it?
That's right. That's right.
And if I can add to that part, and just making sure, and this ties to everything we'll wind up getting into, just making sure she also understands where your budget is.
Right.
Because women, and I'm gonna get in trouble for making this statement. Men too, but women can be like children in this aspect. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful in that statement. Please don't come for me. Children want things. And sometimes children don't have an understanding of where the money comes from. They just want it. And if you have a wife who doesn't have to work and she's blessed to be at home and you're providing, she's going to want things. So she has to have an understanding on where that want can come up to. What is that budget where she knows how far she can come up? Because she doesn't understand that budget. What she wants may go beyond your means. And then it can appear as if you can't maintain this woman. So I pray that I cleaned that up because I wasn't trying to make it seem as women. Okay, you know, trust, I'm gonna get a call when this comes out. Brother, what you say? Like, it wasn't like that, family. It wasn't. I love you so much. But that goes on both ends.
Right.
You know, it goes on both ends. So yes, sir.
You began by talking about what the sisters are being taught about the FOI and the standard.
Yes.
What the FOI is and what they can expect from us.
Yes.
What would you say are some of the main qualities that they're looking to us to demonstrate?
The same thing that's in the essence cliche, maintainer, provider. The thing becomes, what is the example of that? Let me not say that because the minister is the example. What I will say is understanding. I'll go this route because I said the minister is the example and he is the example. A lot of times we get caught up with the aspect of what we see from the minister today, the final product per se, you know, that finished product. But when you're creating something, you know, if you ever took business classes, you had what's called raw materials, and you had to send them through the machine and work on some things to come up with a final product. So a lot of times we want the final product. We don't want to deal with the ground level of the initiative of producing a raw material to a final product.
Mhm.
So them understanding there's phases and steps to getting that. So we go back and tie the minister. And if you ever read the book Closing the Gap, he talked about having one suit, holes at the bottom of his shoe. Him and Mother Khadijah going to the market after it was closing and picking up what was left out to go home and feed their family. He talked about being so poor, but they were they were still happy believers, but they were so poor that you couldn't realize. It's almost like they didn't know they were poor because of how happy they were. We miss those little things.
Wow.
And that's when I talked about earlier with social media. He got to be 6 feet tall, 6 feet plus, with $200,000 plus, this plus this. He got to be fit plus. And
Right.
So, come on, like I can't control my height. I can work on getting my budget there, but are you willing to work with me on where I'm at, that we may get there together? Like way before I got married, I always wanted to get married young. And this was one of the reasons. Since I was a child, I kept saying, and I still feel it. Hannibal, you're going to be so big. You're going to be so successful. You're going to have so much money. And I kept saying, I don't want to get married after I have all that success. I want to get married early so that she can reap it with me. And even if we don't work out, I wouldn't even have a problem. You can have half.
Wow, yeah.
You was with me when I didn't have anything. I want half, sure. I want the house, sure. I want the cars, sure. Because you was with me when I didn't have the house. I didn't have the car. Like, I'll start over. But so when you look at that, it's really just understanding that a woman is looking for a man who makes her feel secure, who she can trust, who gives her confidence and doesn't make her feel like she can't question you. She can't challenge you in a respectful way without it bothering your ego and our ego. Can you, what level can you maintain me at? At the end of the day, especially a lot of women, you can put me in an apartment as long as it's clean. You can give me a 2008 vehicle, 2002 vehicle, as long as it runs smooth. You got a lot of women that'll accept that as long as you're doing it in the right way and they can see the potential in you that you're striving to achieve those things. But then you also have women that's like, I need to be in a 8-bedroom house, 16 bath, estate sitting on 25 million acres. It's like, what? Unrealistic.
Yes, sir.
Now, it doesn't mean it can't happen, but when you start looking at that, how many people have that? Not a whole lot. Let's deal with what's the reality. So so what they're being taught that the man is the maintainer. They're being taught that he's going to provide for you. At the end of the day, when we look at the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Islam was built off of a traditional structure, a traditional marriage structure. The woman will be in a home, which is her base. She will maintain. She'll take care of the family. She'll take care of the children. She'll make sure the house. Remember, this goes into their 7 units.
Yes.
That's all in their 7 units. And the man will go out and provide and make sure things happen. But when you look at today, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has expressed, in today's economy, you need 2 incomes. So it's understanding that you have a man that is striving to maintain that while also not being able to maintain a traditional family structure, unless we're stepping backwards and moving into almost a 1, 2, maybe 3-bedroom apartment. Right. We might be functioning like this, but if you want the home, if you want the nicer vehicle, if you want the acre lots, then you may have to add into that so that we can get it. But even in that component, brothers, right, we can't expect the woman to step out, as the minister teaches us. We can't expect the woman to step outside the home. Right. And then we don't bring the balance to help compensate in the home too. We want her to go work 8 to 10 hours.
Brother, we have less than a minute. This thing could cut off at any time.